I'm Mrs. Princey, Associate Professor in Mental Health Nursing. It's a big question as to why a particular person or an individual, thinks in this particular way. How is he able to solve the problem? How is he able to reason out things? The answer to this question lies on the development of the cognitive function. We have got the various psychologists who has given us the theory of development of cognition, right? So one of the widely accepted theory is given by Jean Piaget, which is the development of cognitive function. Yes, so today the topic that I'm going to discuss is on the theory of cognitive development. Jean Piaget was one of the most influential developmental psychologists during the 20th century. So he was originally trained in the field of biology and philosophy, wherein he himself calls as the genetic epistemologist. Piaget wanted to learn how the children learned to develop this thought by studying the knowledge. Piaget administered Binet's IQ test in children in the Paris, and he observed that the results were quantitatively different. So he wanted to observe why each child is giving a different response. So his theory is based on the fact that the developing child will also develop the cognitive structure, and also as the child ages there is a change in the cognitive structure, or we can say development in the cognitive structure. Piaget's theory of infant development is based on the study on his own 3 children. So he studied how the cognitive development happens in the child through the developmental stages. So let us see what is cognition. The term cognition is derived from the Latin word cognoscere, which means to recognize or to know the objects or to conceptualize, right? Cognition is a mental process of acquiring the knowledge and understanding through the thoughts, experience, as well as the senses. So we can say that cognition is nothing but it is a mental process of how a person is acquiring the various knowledge and understanding about the things which is happening in the environment through the way he thinks, through his experience in day-to-day life, and the various senses which will contribute in the thinking process. So now let us see what is cognitive development. Cognitive development is a means of understanding of how a person will think, right? How a person will be able to think, make the judgment, solve the various problems, reason out. So that is called as a cognitive development. As a person moves on from one stage of development to the other stage of development, even there is a growth in the cognition, right? The cognitive aspect, right? So the person, the way he thinks, the way he reacts, the way he reasons out, the way he makes the judgment, the way he, solves the problem will differ from one stage of development to the other stage. So thus you can make out that how a child will deal with the situation, and how an adolescent or how an adult will deal with a situation is quite different. So Jean Piaget was a person who wanted to observe why there is a change in the cognitive development. So according to his theory of cognitive development, he has classified the different stages of cognitive development. The first stage is the sensory motor stage. So here the age group which will have this stage of development is between 0 to 2 years of age. The second stage of development is the pre-operational stage. The age group which falls for this development is between 2 to 7 years of age. The third one is the concrete operational stage. The age group is from 7 to 11 years. And the last one, which is the formal operational stage, is from the 11 years, or we can say from the adolescence period to the adulthood period. So this is the 4 stages which is given and explained by Jean Piaget. So let us see each of it in detail. So the first stage of cognitive development is the sensory motor stage, wherein the infant, so the age group which has got this kind of a development is from 0 to 2 years, or we can say during the infancy period. Infant constructs the understanding by coordinating with the sensory functions as well as the motor functions. So he sees through the various senses, right? He can hear, he can visualize. So through the various senses, he will be able to give a motor reaction in the form of touching or in the form of, holding a particular object. So that is the means of understanding in the child. The infant also develops the object prominence. Okay, what is this object prominence? Is the memory what the child will have. That means the child will understand that even if a particular object is not existing or not seen in front of him, he understands that the object is still existing. So that is what is the memory that the infant will have during this stage of development. So the infant moves, or how is the progression of cognitive development? So at birth, the infant used to have the reflective and instinctual actions, right? But as the child progresses on to his age, so by the end of the infancy period, the child will be able to understand the intellectual as well as the symbiotic abilities. That means he will be able to think, and also he will be able to understand the various languages. So that is the development of cognition which happens at the end of the infancy period. And this is about the first stage of the cognitive development, which is the sensory motor stage. Now, the second stage of the cognitive development is the pre-operational stage, which is seen between the age of 2 to 7 years old. So we can say the toddlerhood period, right? So the preschooler period. So what is the cognitive development? This stage begins when the child starts to understand or starts using the various words or the languages. So he will start to use symbols for communicating the various words. He will be using the images for communicating, but he will not have the development of the logic, right? So he will still not be able to solve the arithmetic problems or the higher mental abilities the child may not have, but he will start to analyze, he will start to use the words, the images, the language for the communication. So that is the development which happens in the toddlerhood period. So this stage is further being divided into two sub-stages. One is the preconceptual stage. The second one is the intuitive phase or the intuitive stage. The first one, the preconceptual stage, is between the age group of 2 to 4 years. So here the child actually starts to use the verbal representation. He will be using the symbols for the communication, but he will be more egocentric. So he will also be able to analyze that, when he's playing with a doll or a toy. So he understands that the toy or a doll is a separate individual. He starts to feed, he starts to communicate to the doll. So that is the development which happens in the preconceptual stage. The second stage is the intuitive stage. So this intuitive stage is between 4 to 7 years. So during this stage, here in this stage, the child will become less egocentric and he will try to be more social. He'll try to use more verbal representation in his talk, and he will be able to understand the various senses and the feelings that he is getting, but he is not able to make out as to why he is getting these feelings or various senses. So that is the intuitive stage of the development. So if you take a pre-operational stage, it is again subdivided into two sub-stages, which is the preconceptual stage and the intuitive stage. What are the key features of the second stage, which is the pre-operational stage? The key features are the egocentrism, we can say the animism, as well as the concentration. So we can say that the child is preoccupied with their own self, not taking into account the viewpoints of the other people. Say, for example, the child says, I can see this particular object and you cannot see it. It means that the child is only be able to see this particular object. The other person is not able to see. So he is more egocentric in this particular stage. The second thing is the animism. So here the child will start treating the inanimate object as the living object. Say, for example, the child tries to play with the doll. So he will analyze that the doll is a living object. He tries to feed the doll, he tries to play with the doll. So that is what is the animism. The third one is the concentration. The child will concentrate on one particular thing, one limited aspect that he will concentrate, and he will not be able to concentrate, or he will try to ignore the other aspects in the environment. So he will be able to focus on one limited thing. So this is what the key features of the second stage of development. We have got the egocentrism, the animism, as well as the concentration. The next stage of cognitive development is the concrete operational stage. So in this concrete operational stage falls between the age group of 7 to 11 years, and you can say during the school age period, right? So during this stage of development, there is something called as a logic development which will happen. The child will start using the logics, right? So in this, what are the characteristic features? The first one is the seriation. The seriation here, the child will be able to sort out the objects of different sizes and different shapes. So they will be able to identify that each object is different, the shape of the object is different, the size of the object is different. So if you can, for example, if you give a object to the child, so the child will be able to differentiate and place the object in the correct place, right? So that is called as the seriation. The second characteristic is the transitivity. So what is transitivity? Here the child will be able to analyze the elements, right? So say, for example, that you say that A is taller than B and B is taller than C. So the child will be able to make out that the A is taller than C. So that is what that he will be able to understand the concept of the elements. The third feature of this particular stage is the classification. The child will be able to find out that the common features of the object can be classified into groups. Say, for example, that dogs are one group. Okay, there is another group which is the animals. So he understands that dog is also an animal which can be classified under the group of the animals. So like that, the child will be able to understand the common features and classify it into groups which will match. So that is the third feature. The next one is the decentric. So here the child will be able to take the multiple aspect of the situation. So say, for example, you wide and a small cup. So the child will understand that it will contain less amount of the anything, the object. Right. If you give a wider and a taller cup, then he will understand that that particular cup will contain more of the amount. So that is what is decentric. The next one is the reversibility. So the child will start to understand that the object or the number can be changed, and also it can be reversed. Say, for example, 4 plus 4 is 8. Then he understands that this can also be reversed as 8 minus 4 is also 4. So that is what is the reversibility. The next feature is the conservation. So here the child will understand that the length or the the number of the item is not unrelated to the appearance of the item. So that is called as the conservation. So another important thing which will happen in this third stage is the elimination of the egocentrism. So in the second stage, you understand that there is a feature of egocentrism. In the third phase, the child will start to understand the perspective of the another individual also. So there is elimination of the egoistic behavior or a thought in the child. And also he will be able to learn certain arithmetic abilities like combining, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So such kind of things that he will be able to do. So that is about the third stage, which is the concrete operational stage, wherein the child will develop the logic stage. The next stage of the development is the formal operational stage. So the age group which falls for this stage is the 12 years and above, we can say as adolescent and adulthood period. So here during the stage of development, the child or the individual will start to analyze the logistic thinking. He will start to have abstract thinking. He will become increasingly flexible and he will try to carry out or do the experiments, right? So that is what is this stage of the development. He will have the development of the ability to systematically solve the particular problem in a logistic and a methodological way, and he will be able to understand that nothing is absolute and everything is relative. He will develop the skills such as logistic thinking and deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and systematic reasoning. So all these things that he will develop the skills. He will try to understand the rules of any kind of the game and the involvement of the people in making the rules, and these rules or the rules in the society also can be changed or modified accordingly. So that is what he will understand. He will also have the advanced level of the thinking. So these are the features that we can say during the fourth stage of development, which is the formal operational stage. Now let us see what is the educational implication. So based on the cognitive theory of development given by Jean Piaget, so it is used in various educational fields to modify or to upgrade the way a educational institution will deliver the knowledge to the child, so that he will be having the ability to solve the various problems. So let us see what is the contribution or the implication in the educational field. One is the emphasis on the discovery approach of learning. So the learning should be a form of discovery to identify the various changes or the advancement. So that is one of the implication. The second one is curriculum should provide the course or the syllabus based on the child's stage of the development. So according to the stage of the development, the curriculum which is going to be given by the institutions or the university should match. So we cannot give the curriculum which cannot be matching or congruent with the child stage of the development. Next one is to arrange the classroom activities so that it will be helpful for the child to do the self-learning. So if you take classrooms, it is equipped with various audiovisual aids, okay, so or various advancements or technology which can be there on various activities in the classroom. So it will give the child a chance to improve the skill of self-learning. So that is another educational implication. The next thing is the social interaction. Another very important thing as a positive reinforcement is the social interaction. So when the child is there in the classroom or in the educational setup, so he will be able to communicate and develop the skill of the socialization. So next is the instruction should be geared at the level of the child. So as the child develops or moves from one stage of the development to another stage of development, he should be able to explore the ideas. So there should not be a static curriculum. There should be a change in the curriculum according to the development of the child. So how should be the teaching method? The teaching method should progress from simple to complex, and the projective method of teaching should be used as much as possible to awake the child's cognitive development. Co-curriculum activity also should be an important part of the curriculum, because the child will be able to develop his skills, right? So apart from the education or the curriculum, the co-curricular activities also should be included in the educational setup. That's the main thing. So according to Piaget, so only thing that he understands is the child will be able to develop the critical thinking once he has crossed one stage of development to the other stage. So this is about the cognitive theory. So based on the age or stage of development, even the cognition or the development of the cognitive structure will change, and that is why the person at that particular age of development, he will be able to think in this way and solve only limited problems. So as a person ages or as a person's development happens, so even there is a way that he approaches to various problems and deals with the problems. Hope you all have understood the topic. Thank you.